as you know, the topic is cognitive diversity, and I wish I could explain you better, but we have them that can do it even better than me. So the only thing I wanted to say is that we have this Mind Expansion Extended every month on a different topic that we feel we are confident we have something to share with the world, and cognitive diversity is definitely something that is very dear to us in the network. We are striving to get a lot of cognitive diversity in the network because we believe that what makes the network so interesting and fascinating. But there's so much more to say about this. So without further ado, I just leave the mic to my lovely hosts, Adam and Leila, and they will guide you through the magic word of cognitive diversity. Thank you so much, Guy. I'm going to mute myself now.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for making the time today. I realize that it's a tricky time. We're currently doing our Christmas stew, so we fit it in the morning, but we're really excited to share this with you because a lot of work's been going on in the background, a lot of thinking, and I think it's a really interesting topic. So we've got a few slides for you today. I'm just going to share those now.
Can everybody see that? Perfect. Should I just jump in?
Yep.
All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for coming. I'll reiterate what Joya said. If you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat. And this is being recorded. So if you have any questions further down the line, put them in the comments and we will get to them as soon as we can. But today, as I'm sure you're aware, we will be talking about cognitive diversity. And how different perspectives can supercharge innovation. I know that's quite broad, but we will get into the detail. So I'll run you through a quick agenda of what we'll be going through today. First and foremost, what is cognitive diversity? We'll give you a definition, an overview. How is it different from other forms of diversity, like demographics? That's a really interesting conversation. Then we'll get into why cognitive diversity is so important to innovation. And what that means for organizations, how it's being applied in the world as it is, and how Sense Worldwide specifically is advancing the field of cognitive diversity. Let's jump into it. Quick intro. We are the R&D team at Sense Worldwide. My name is Leila. I am the new data scientist. You can probably tell from my voice that I am from the USA, but I did move to the UK when I was 18, so I've been here a minute. I've just completed my master's degree in business analytics here in London, and that was quite a special experience. It really honed my passion for data analysis, for natural language processing, which is, you may know, it's just using computing to understand language and text. But it's all quite exciting, and I'm very happy here.
And leading on from the nerdy theme here, I'm Adam. I'm an R&D manager and innovation consultant at Sense Worldwide. My background is really in research, academic research, and I've kind of been really interested in innovation and creativity since my bachelor's in psychology, which led me to kind of pursue more research during my master's in organizational behavior and management, and really kind of my area of focus. My theses and my research and my publications have really been about how do you build innovation teams, innovation cultures, and how can you manage and facilitate different people and with different perspectives in organizations. So it really kind of speaks to the theme that we're talking to today. I just want to give a little bit of context about why this conversation around cognitive diversity is so important. Because our mission is to organize humans with cognitive diversity to deliver breakthrough innovation at scale. Now at Sense Worldwide, really what we do is we help organizations see things differently and deliver breakthrough results through the power of cognitive diversity. We utilize the power of the Sense network, you amazing people, with all these kind of amazing perspectives from across the globe. And we work with you to co-create the future and allow our clients and consumers to step into the future with confidence. Bringing people together with different perspectives is something that is the core of exactly what we do. We thrive on it, and it's what makes us so magical, and that is you. You power this engine of cognitive diversity, that you are our most valuable kind of asset and partner in whatever we do. But what is this about cognitive diversity, and how is it different from other forms of diversity that you might have heard in the conversation today? I just want to give you a little bit of context about where we are in the world, because I think it's important to recognize how much has changed over the past 50 years. Now, our world is more interconnected than it's ever been. We see the world on a global scale. It wasn't too long ago that our world was defined by what we could see directly in front of us, the people in our communities, the jobs in our local areas. But now the world is interconnected. And through the use of technology, we're able to connect with billions of people around the globe in an instant. We've had a political alliance and the kind of planes and global transportation that has enabled people to migrate across the world and allow people to work together differently that might have been restricted to our immediate kind of local areas before. The internet has allowed us to kind of access communication and just ring up anyone across the world who has a phone or has the internet, that allows us to kind of gain new perspectives and see new ideologies and beliefs and ways of working that was previously unattainable, or what could even be imagined 50 years ago. And because of this, the big question is around the past X amount of years has been, how might we best work together as a global community? And during this time, organizations and policymakers really encouraged the integration and the adoption of people with different kind of cultural and geographic and political backgrounds to work together and thrive in the modern multicultural society that you see today. And this is the diversity that covers a wide range of attributes and qualities. But although diversity is valuable for its own sake, the research has actually shown that demographic characteristics like our age and our culture and our ethnicity are not the ones that predict innovation per se. Especially, and actually, cognitive and that kind of diversity can be a double-edged sword. It can lead to positive or negative effects, depending on how that diversity is managed and the type of diversity under consideration. And to better understand the factors that lead to greater innovation and effectiveness in organizations, researchers have begun to uncover the role of cognitive diversity in teams and social networks. Cognitive diversity goes beyond the surface of it's the differences in the way that we think, the way that we process information, our beliefs, our values, our decision-making, and even how we see the world. And a definition of cognitive diversity is the inclusion of people who have different styles of problem solving that can offer unique, valuable perspectives because they see and think differently. As I said, this is different between the demographic diversity, which can lead to kind of different effects in organizations. As I said, valuable in its own right, but it's probably what causes the differences in the way that we see the world today. Our unique perspectives come from our upbringing, our experiences in our life, where we grew up, who we grew up with, and these lead us to see things differently and process information in different ways. And really, cognitive diversity is about bringing the right people together. Everyone has their own signature strength that they bring into organization. And when you reflect on your organization or your team or who you are, you might think about the different people in your team, about who is the deep expert, who brings that specialist knowledge that no other person can, who is the rebel or the outlier or the misfit, the radical thinker that challenges the status quo. What about those who see work and life through a compassionate lens? The lovers and the carers who care about ethics and morality and social justice and all the people-related problems. And what about the natural skeptics and critics? People who are not afraid to challenge and ask the questions that need to be asked. When you combine these types of people with their different perspectives, it creates an alchemical reaction that enables the team to become better than the sum of their parts.
When we talk about cognitive diversity in this way, it would almost be remiss of us to not dive a little bit into the discussion around neurodiversity and what that means. Particularly in recent years, we've seen a rise of organizations reframing neurodiversity, not as a weakness, but as a strength, because people with different ways of thinking, ways of perceiving the world, different cognition, different neurology, they see the world in a different way, and that gives them almost a hidden superpower, or rather it can, simply because it's different and it's providing a new angle. So we have a short video here, just a few minutes, of Heather Haying giving us just a quick look at what that discussion contains. If we can play that.
Neurodiversity is a pretty new term, and I'm very grateful for it. It gets to something that is absolutely real and has been harder to discuss before it existed. That said, I'm not sure I have a perfect definition. It recognizes the fact that we are not singular, that we are not all identical, that we have a variation of brains, of connectivity, of aptitudes, of weaknesses, of blind spots, and of sensitivities, and of capabilities. People on the autism spectrum who are very functional, in my experience, tend to have extraordinary analytical skills and also often, actually, insight into social interactions, so long as they are not the ones participating. And so you have, I've had a number of autistic students actually point out to me dynamics that were emerging in classrooms that I hadn't yet seen, and that once they were pointed out, I could see. And these are the same students who have a very hard time recognizing when it is or is not time to speak or get up or walk through the middle of a classroom and such. There are a number of ways to be neurodiverse. We have names for some conditions that actually represent ends of continuum. Dyslexia is a big one. These are going to sound like they're coming out of left field, but color blindness, left-handedness, in each of those cases, being what in evolutionary biology we call the non-dominant phenotype. So I'm a lefty. That's the one of those that I belong to as a group. And about 10% of people across all cultures that have been studied are left-handed. It's a persistent, stable, rare phenotype, which suggests that it's adaptive, that it's persistent, it's complex, and it provides the different wiring of the brain associated with being a left-hander, provides benefit in the social group in which left-handers show up. We can put together analyses for why being a left-hander might allow you to approach a physical problem differently that a right-hander would have a harder time solving, but the different wiring of the brain allows for different approaches as well. Similar with color blindness, that it might be really easy to say, well, okay, that just is going to give you some ability to see past color and to see patterns that aren't color-based, perhaps, but I suspect that there's wiring in the brain that is associated with color blindness that also allows for enhanced abilities that are different from those who are color-sighted. Dyslexia for sure, right? Dyslexia is obviously a very modern condition because writing is a very modern condition. So as an evolutionary biologist, when I say modern, I mean thousands of years. So dyslexia is modern in terms of thousands of years. And language was always about sound and never about writing until recently. And so the lessened ability, it's almost never an inability, but the lessened ability to process written symbols into meaning in your head looks to me like it's in trade-off relationship with the ability to engage in real time in speech. And that's not to say that all of us can't learn through practice to be better at any number of these skills, but that being born with what the world is calling a deficit is almost always going to exist in trade-off relationship with some often hidden strength.
I'm just saying, I hope you all found that as interesting as I do. I think it's an incredible conversation to have, and that's really only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, even when she mentions dyslexia, there's also auditory dyslexia, which kind of moves past the lessened ability to translate writing into thought, but it has to do with sound as well. So I won't get into it, but really fascinating. So we've talked a lot about cognitive diversity. Why is it so important for innovation? Why is it important for organizations? Why are we talking about it so much? Well, let me tell you. It's been found that cognitive diversity leads to innovation, resilience, and growth. There's an increase in creativity, productivity, team collaboration, communication, problem solving, better decision making. I could go on. There's a number of academic studies and business case studies, some of which we will take a look at today, that prove the correlation with cognitive diversity and a number of incredible outcomes such as these. And here is one of those case studies. This was an article written by Harvard Business Review in 2017 called "Teams Solve Problems Faster When They're More Cognitively Diverse." Essentially, a team was run some tests on their executives, gave them an exercise and a task, and they found that there's a significant correlation between higher cognitive diversity within the group and higher performance, faster performance, more effective performance. So the teams that completed the challenge in good time all had a greater diversity in two factors that they measured: knowledge process and perspective. And essentially what they found is that the higher degree of cognitive diversity generated accelerated learning and performance, even especially in the face of new, uncertain, and very complex situations. Here on the right, we can actually see a graphic from that very same study. We don't need to go into detail on it, but essentially you will see that team A, which only took 21 minutes to complete the challenge, had a very large standard deviation in knowledge processing and perspective. That just means there was a greater overall difference. There was a higher diversity. And you'll see the opposite with team F. On the left, you'll see a quote pulled from a purely academic study that says cognitive diversity contributes towards the team's potential to produce innovative solutions and products. So what we're saying here has been proven many times over. We've seen it in practice, we've seen it in theory, we've seen it in theory and practice. It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff. I'm gonna bring up another video now. This one is just a touch longer, but it gives us another look at what cognitive diversity looks like in practice and within an organization and what that means for an organization. So let's hit it.
I want to make an argument about diversity from the perspective of performance. And I want to draw a distinction right at the start between two kinds of diversity. On the one hand, demographic diversity, which is a thing that we often think about when we think about this term. On the other hand, there is cognitive diversity, which is about differences in perspectives and insight and the models and heuristics we deploy to make sense of the world around us, and also perhaps differences in thinking styles. Some people are quite analytical thinkers and others more holistic and contextual thinkers. Imagine you're putting together a group of sprint relay runners. And let's say the fastest 4 runners are all the same gender, the same race, the same age. They all have 2 children, watch the same TV programs. So they're not terribly diverse demographically and probably not cognitively either. And suppose somebody said to you, you know what, if you could diversify that team, diversity really matters. And you then started selecting slower runners who were indeed diverse. Would this help you win the Olympic gold medal? No, it would undermine your chances of winning an Olympic gold medal.
There's a question in the chat
How is that?
that I can share with you. What tools do you recommend for measuring cognitive diversity?
Now, that is probably the most complicated question you could have asked, and I love it. There are so many different ways at the moment that cognitive diversity is being measured that it's hard to pick. There is no gold standard. And it's one of the big challenges at the moment around, like, what is the type of cognitive diversity we should be measuring? Now, the most simplest form that I find in the literature is that it's about, like, just asking a simple question: how different do you feel than other people in your group? Now, there are way more complicated forms that have measured people's ability, multiple intelligences, like visuospatial ability or problem-solving ability, that requires them to do different tasks and time them, and then match people with different processing speeds in organizations. So there's a broad spectrum, really, from recognizing that you feel different to actually processing times. And then there's other measures like profiling tools and personality tools. There's a ton of academic and business related tools that try and measure the way in people process and make decisions. One of the common ones is something like maybe the MBTI, that measures people's perspectives on how they make decisions. Are they thinking types that are more analytical? Are they feeling types that are more kind of people orientated and harmonious? Are they more analytic? Are they more like holistic, or are they more kind of sensory? Now we'll touch upon the different measures a little bit. I think we've just gained back connection. So, but essentially, cognitively diverse teams challenge each other. They are able to re-examine each other's thinking and bring up conversations that highlight differences in opinion and therefore challenge the way that each other think, even if these challenges come from a minority group. It's what we call minority dissent. It's the ability for a small group or person to challenge perspectives that is unconventional. And this happens far more often. Even if that challenge is met with another challenge, it enables people to justify their thoughts and their perspectives and more rationalize why they are thinking the way that they are, and why the ideas suggesting where they come from. In that way, we allow people to highlight their biases and assumptions in their thinking. And in a similar way, people with different perspectives question things, and they're able to present and question ways that are working that may be obsolete, leading to greater levels of innovation. This is called team reflexivity. And each member might attach certain importance to their worldviews and promote different ways of thinking, which kind of challenges habitual thoughts and behaviors of each other as they come from different backgrounds and perspectives. And finally, a study that came out just a few months ago, actually, it was really interesting, is that cognitively diverse teams lead to more greater levels of creative play. Teams in cognitively diverse teams recognize each other's differences. They often laugh and joke about these differences, and this is what we call affiliative humor. Now, this type of humor enables creativity in a team because it also acts as the social glue and a psychological safety net that allows people to criticism without too much criticism. Now, another question that we might have, and that we are kind of currently challenges, is how might we best harness cognitive diversity? Now, the research has shown that actually cognitive diversity doesn't exist in a linear relationship with performance. What I mean by that is too much cognitive diversity can be harmful, and too little cognitive diversity can be harmful too. When you have too little cognitive diversity, you have people that just think the same and you don't challenge each other. There's not enough play. But when you have too much cognitive diversity, it might lead to differences too much differences in opinion and conflict, and you never actually get anything done because you're just arguing all the time. Now, The wider work and the environment in which we exist and work and kind of communicate in plays a really important role in harnessing cognitive diversity. And our ability to tailor our environment around us enables us to either harness this ability and prevent disruption and communicate in ways that are cooperative, that would otherwise impede performance. At Sensible Wide, we believe like a culture of creative intelligence enables people to do that. We teach people to harness diverse perspectives, to seek different views, to challenge the way that we think as well. And if you're interested in learning more about our creative intelligence philosophy and principles, we have a course available that's free on the Sense Network that you can go out and learn about the principles in which we live and breathe here.
So when we think about how might we best harness cognitive diversity, it makes sense to look at what other people are doing and how it's being harnessed in other organizations today. And there's a number of ways that organizations are doing that. I've pulled out the 3 most common ones here. There's some overlap and there's some other facets that we won't cover today, but these are the tools. So there's a bit of variety within this, but ultimately these tools are used to understand and map human behavior, cognitions, thinking styles, and personality in order to make solutions clearer and build self-awareness of an individual or a team. Because ultimately everybody's approach to problem solving and innovation is slightly different from another's, and building that awareness and putting people into certain categories where they can understand that can increase not only your awareness, but your understanding and your ability to use cognitive diversity. It's also used quite a bit in recruitment, where organizations claim to be able to build quote unquote diverse by design teams to maximize effective innovative thinking and even fill gaps in cognitive diversity to minimize shortfalls. They can also predict how like a candidate in an interview might perform in a particular role or team, even the business and culture as a whole. Within management, cognitive diversity also plays an incredibly huge role in change management, making culture initiatives last longer, be more effective, and it can increase collaboration, interpersonal communication, the agility of the organization, and obviously innovation. So combined with the academic implications that we've already covered, this means that cognitive diversity as a concept actually covers a very wide space. We can kind of see this here on the matrix between academic and business, between application and indication, so those profiling tools I talked about. And you can also see where Sense Worldwide may lie in that space. So bringing a business perspective, but also using it within a practical application and making it a tangible, usable thing.
So really just wanted to kind of share back some things that we're doing behind the scenes today. So how is Sense Worldwide advancing the field of cognitive diversity? You may or may not know that actually we're doing some research, and we've been working with UCL, University College London, an amazing organization, amazing university from which Leila has recently graduated, to better understand what is the relationship between cognitive diversity and innovation for our projects. And one of the things that she found, she did an analysis of all the different people who were in our projects, and found that the higher level of cognitive diversity, the more likely it was that our projects and our co-creation projects led to more breakthrough innovation. And we also are looking into more about the Sense Network and understanding who you are. And what we found was that the Sense Network contained this amazing group of people who really kind of think in a really intuitive style. You know, this kind of trait of intuition is really prevalent, over 58% more than the general population of people who are visionary thinkers, notice the big picture and how everything connects creative problem solving, embracing novelty and originality, and the enjoyment of exploring future possibilities. So really, you guys are quite unique in the way that you think and learn and are part of our projects. But this is just scratching the surface. There's tons of stuff coming out in next year that we want to share back with you, our insights around the projects that we're doing and our research. So please continue engaging with the Sense Network and being part of our projects and adding your unique perspectives. We really do value that. And it's not just about the way you think, but also your engagement that makes you so amazing. And just keep an eye out, because we have a few extra projects and research projects that enable us to better understand who you are and how we can put the right people in the room to solve the problems of the future. So thank you for your patience today. Thank you for being patient again with the technical difficulties, and just welcome all the questions. But we just want to leave you with 3 kind of provocations before we end today. Think about, what are your signature strengths that you contribute to your team or organization? What is the unique perspective? Because everyone's got one. But what is yours? Are you a lover or a carer? Are you a natural skeptic? Are you a crazy one or a deep expert? And how do you ensure that you harness the cognitive diversity of your team or group? What is it that you do that allows you to make sure that everyone's idea is included and that the best ideas come out in your team? And where in your life do you see cognitive diversity adding the most value? Because it's not just about the way we work, but the way that we communicate with other people and live and breathe in our families and our social communities as well. Thank you for your kind of attention and being part of the conversation. Looking forward to chatting.
Thank you.
We have a few questions in the chat, if you guys are able to see them.
Few of them, yeah.
We have Ralph that asks, are internet echo chambers created by Google and Facebook algorithms creating a divisive society?
Thank you for the question. This is a really interesting one. I'm assuming you mean almost in line with like how social media, you can scroll and only ever see things you agree with. If that's what you mean.
And search. So it was on my mind because there's an MP actually did a debate in the House of Commons on vaccine harm the other day. Vaccine harm. So I Googled vaccine harm, and there was a paper from 2014 saying how that it was a study showing how, because of Google giving up what you're most likely to, so they profile you and they give you what you're most likely to want to receive. So Google and Facebook never challenge you at all. And so everybody's being fed a particular sort of convergent line rather than a divergent line, a line of information that converges on them. And this was 2014, and we've seen this really in the last few years. And does that then blow diversity? Because you've created divisiveness, which is separating people rather than bringing them together, which is what, I mean, diversity is all very well being apart, but the benefits come when it all is brought together.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and I think that's a really interesting conversation, and I very much agree that it's convergent in that sense, and it really minimizes the perspectives that you see in your daily life. In that sense, yes, I would say it's minimizing cognitive diversity. In that sense, I think there is more to the conversation when you account for the fact that cognitive diversity sees its most power in a group. So I think that gets you thinking about whether it qualifies as like being part of a group when you're searching something online, and whether that's just, I don't know, confirmation bias, or you're just not learning, and how far the idea of cognitive diversity extends into that space.
I think it's a really interesting reflection, Ralph, because I think these algorithms actually reflect an innate human nature to be around perspectives that feel familiar to you. And if you think about the way in which we grow up in silos. We do. We associate with people who are in the same culture with us. We become friends with people who have the same politics. We work in organizations with functional diversity, in teams who have people who have the same skill sets and the same backgrounds. And it seems that that's kind of represented and echoed all over the world. Now, I kind of spoke about the world of interconnectivity, and I do think it's the power of these networks that we have around the Sense network, where we're able to challenge each other's perspectives, we're able to bring a different point of view and create an environment of psychological safety where those perspectives and those information and those ideas can come up and shine and be challenged and discussed rather than be shunned and ignored. So completely a great question.
Awesome. I think Ralph had another one. Maybe you want to read it so we don't risk the echo.
Yes, thanks, Joy. Sorry about that. Dyslexia is measured with an IQ test, so surely other cognitive type tests can be devised. Yeah, absolutely. There, we kind of touched upon one of the measures at the moment, the DISC profile, which is a personality profile. There are tons of tests within the academic sphere around cognitive diversity. There's the notion of multiple intelligences. So I think there may be 8 or maybe even 9 now around how people have different ways of processing information. Are they emotionally intelligent? Are they visuospatially intelligent? So they're able to map things in their mind very well. Are they verbally or linguistically intelligent? And they're seeing that throughout these kind of battery of tests. There are different ways to quantify the differences between people and better understand what are those kind of enablers and limitations of cognitive diversity and performance.
All right. Final question for now. Is there a value or a number of parameters behind how much is too little or too much to have the right amount of diversity? Super interesting question, by the way. Would also like to understand the definition of diversity here. Your metaphor with the trees, what was that called again?
Well, Satiju, that's a great question. And
that's kind of what we're looking into.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to
we can't give much away.
We can't spoil too much, but this is actually a study that we're doing right now. But we have quantified cognitive diversity in our groups, and we have a numerical measure, and we have a numerical range. So we found that there is a certain range that seems to lead to the greatest outputs for our project. Now, it's not something we use for recruitment or anything. It's something that we've observed. But yeah, as Joy's put, watch this space, because we have internal projects that we're kind of sharing out, and we've got a book coming out as well that's going to share back some of these insights. But really looking forward to sharing more on our data science and our algorithms around that. Yeah.
Okay. So no sneak peek.
Not today.
No.
Sorry.
All right. I'll wait for that. Sure. Thank you.
Yes. From Michelle, I'm curious about tools and processes you can share to ensure there's not too much conflict. There is psychological safety, knowledge on how to harness and not be hindered. Yeah. So I think this has a lot to do with team culture, team climate. So it might not be so much tools and processes, but rather the intangible. So we talk a lot about creative intelligence as part of the environment and culture of Sense Worldwide and the importance of that. And that's because there's a lot there about maybe not even minimizing conflict, but making sure that there's the right kind of conflict. So constructive conflict, psychological safety, because you can ask questions without being shut down. You can challenge and experiment. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a much more intangible thing than necessarily a tool.
I think there's a really interesting question again. How do you enable the right kind of cognitive diversity? And as Leila rightly said, we believe in a culture, a climate, a set of principles and values within our work that enable these things to happen beneficially. So we believe in harnessing diverse perspectives. We believe in challenging the status quo, challenging the default. Ingrained within our processes and our practices, there are certain mechanisms that we have in place. For example, when we're doing like a project, we ensure that we share early and get different diverse perspectives on the team before we crystallize an idea or a perspective in our mind and take it too forward. Stuff like that. And also we also kind of challenge our assumptions and our iterative process. So we try to experiment early and be open to failure. And in our meetings, again, around that kind of area of psychological safety, we have a principle called build, don't break. So we like to build on each other's ideas. We don't break them. We don't shut them down in terms of conflict. Now, if you're interested, again, that's TQ stuff in our creative intelligence course. We have an online course that talks about how these principles can be manifested and brought into your organization. And we also have more interesting stuff about creative intelligence. We've developed a measure of how you can bring about and understand your own creative intelligence as a developmental tool that is also kind of coming out in the future as well. So again, watch this space.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm doing work as a facilitator, so going into other organizations, and I'm also a college professor, so having teams work in my design thinking class, for example. But and I've realized just even making people aware, you know, you're going to feel some resistance here, and this is how to approach it. As she mentioned, it's somewhat intangible, but bringing that it's not necessarily wrong, but just for them to like gain appreciation for the conflict, I think has been powerful. And I haven't quite heard it as cognitive diversity before this week. So I'm really like, oh, I'm so excited about it. And even something that we have in the States, I'm in the US, and I guess it's all probably worldwide. Last year was strengths finders, but it's been another way of defining those, how people think and process and getting people to understand. I think it was something you said about that slide, having awareness of yourself as well as your team. And that was one tool. So I look forward to diving in more and going through that course. So thank you.
That's great to hear, Michelle. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, and we do the same thing, Michelle. I would love to hear more, maybe on a separate conversation about what are the principles that you bring. Because we try and do the same when we start a workshop, and we can say, hey, look, kind of contribute, it's all about, if we're in ideation mode or exploration mode, we say, hey, look, don't judge too soon, all ideas kind of go. But I think what you're pointing to that's the most important is that the role of the facilitator cannot be ignored. And when we've talked about kind of climate and culture a little bit, but actually the conversations that we have with people all point to the role of the coach and the facilitator as that champion of people who can bring teams through that process to manage the differences in between the people, and the way that you can direct that energy into the right type of problem solving, when to ideate, when to evaluate, when to implement is super important with the facilitator.
Wow.
Okay, but I think this was a perfect example of how cognitive diversity can improve any conversation, because we had a brilliant conversation and presentation from our R&D team, but all the inputs that you shared in the chat and the question and the way that we open up this subject really proves that when we have a room full of interesting people with different backgrounds, the magic happens. So let's keep doing this. And of course, tomorrow you'll find a recording. You can share it with friends. You can add into the comment. If you have useful resources, please do share them in the comment section. So whoever comes that wasn't able to be here with us today will find all these useful links from tomorrow on. Thank you so much for being with us. And I wish you a lovely day, whatever the time is in your time zone. And of course, please do come back in the Sense Network. We have so much going on. We also have like Secret Center, which is a special Christmas feature. So just, come and bring all your incredible brilliance and cognitive diversity, because we really value that. Have a nice day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.